Hey everybody, Yankee here. If you watch my videos, you might remember that the other day, one of my supporters got angry with me and stopped supporting the channel because I posted a car video. Now this was especially hard to take because that person had just won the Friend of the Month gift certificate 2 months previous after just being a member for like a month and a half, 2 months. So it was a little hard to take. They said, I didn't sign on to support a car channel. This is supposed to be a gun channel. And I'm taking back my support after they made out like a bandit. So that was a little hard for me. Now, I've got two different options here. One, I can be petty and immature and just double down and say, it's whatever I say it is. This channel's my channel. I do what I want. Or I can be the bigger person. I can be, like I said, more mature. And I can say, I know people who support this channel have certain expectations. They think, hey, it's a gun channel. It's a Second Amendment channel. And that's all they're going to see. And when they see something different, I guess maybe they feel like they've been cheated. And I could apologize. Like I said, show that I'm the more mature person here, that I actually listen to my viewers. But I think we all know that's what I'd like to do. But I am actually petty. I'm very petty. I'm Laura petty. I might even be Tom petty. And I'm also not all that mature. So here is another car video. Hey everybody, Yankee here. A lot of you might be aware that I just recently bought a new 2024 Subaru WRX. Traded in my Camaro 2SS, which a lot of people disagree with me doing that, but life is about experiencing new things. Well, the new WRXs, they don't make an STI, but they do make a TR, and that's what I got. And I decided it needed the wing. Now, I know a lot of people don't like putting wings on a car that isn't an STI, but I hate to break it to those people. Wings existed before STIs. STIs don't own the idea of a wing. If someone else putting a wing on their car that isn't a trim that doesn't exist anymore bothers you that much, well, go get some therapy. But I myself am not going to allow that to influence my decisions. So I went out and I bought a wing. And the one I got was from Aeroflow Dynamics. This is a multi-piece wing. It's a little different than most of the wings I've ever seen and some of the ones I've actually installed because it's not one big piece with a couple of other pieces to mount it to the hood. It's a 5-piece setup. The big cross-section of the wing is actually separate from the upright parts. Now that made me a little nervous at first, but after getting it, I noticed, wow, this is a lot sturdier than some of the wings I've previously seen, which I think should reduce the flex while you're going down the road at highway speeds. So once I got it, pulled it out, felt it, I was like, yeah, okay, I see how this is going to be better. So I went ahead and put it together. And once I got it together, I noticed one thing I absolutely hated. When you put the bolts in to hold that cross member in, you saw them underneath the wing. Now, you wouldn't see this if you were outside the car looking at the car or if you're just someone on the road, but I'll know they're there, and that bothers me that you can actually see that hardware there. So I was wondering, is there a cap that can go over this? Is there something you can fill this space with that you can get from the manufacturer? Just something to cover it up. Because, it doesn't do this on the other section where it connects. They actually fit pretty flush. The bolts don't stick out really far. And plus, you can't see them here, so it's not as big an issue here. But up here, it's a big issue. Since I couldn't find any caps or any filler plugs, I decided I'm just going to go ahead and shorten these because they all seem to be the same length because I guess they wanted people to not get screwed up on which actual threaded piece goes where. So they just made them all the same length, and they're the right length for the undersection here. They're just a little long for the top section. So I decided I would mark those bolts, I would take them over, and I would cut them down. And pardon the blood on the wing there. Never let it be said, I do not put my blood, sweat, and tears into these projects. And then once I cut them down, I taped them off, I sprayed them with some primer, and then I sprayed them with some touch-up paint that I got from Scratches Happen online. And once I spray painted them, they looked a lot better. It didn't bother me now. I still wish I could get some plugs for it, but this here is acceptable. Like I said, no one else is going to see them. I'm the only one that they're bothering, but this makes me feel quite a bit better. All right, now I've got the wing completed. And after I got the wing completed, it actually sat on the bed in my guest room for over a week because I was scared to get started. Because you actually have to drill into your trunk to install this. It's not some stick-on with double-sided tape. You actually have to bolt this thing on. And I was very nervous about that. And not only that, but we were also dealing with a wild turkey invasion on our property at the time. And I was a little upset about that too, because Turnip wanted to use the kill them all and let God sort them out method, but I wanted to live in harmony with them. We finally managed to work that out. And once that was done, I got up the gumption to get started on the actual installation. Now, the first thing I did is use the template they supply to mark the holes on the actual trunk lid. That was the easy part. I put tape under it where the holes were and then marked on the tape. I don't know why. I was worried about marking on the actual hood. I'm going to be drilling a hole there in a minute. But, you know, sometimes everything I do doesn't make sense. Now, once I got those marked, I took off the inner lining on the trunk so I could see where I was going to be drilling from. And if you notice, there's one hole here that is actually a multi-layered hole. There's a hole already there. Then there's a little bracket with a hole in it. Well, that's where it said to drill your first hole. Actually, from the backside, drill straight through. And I did that. It was very frustrating and very scary, but I did it. That was one of the most terrifying things. I did that on both sides. I think I might have pooped a little on that one. I can't go back now. And once I had that done, I then remarked the holes. I put new tape down, remarked the holes, because when I drilled through from the underside, it was off a tiny little fraction. Not much, but just because I didn't keep the drill perfectly level. So I went through and remarked all the holes and worked everything out so everything would be perfect, and then proceeded with the installation, which meant I had to start drilling the holes from the top, which was also very nerve-wracking, but I got it done. Oh, and one little tip here for everybody. When you do this, when you drill in, don't try to brush off these little metal shavings. You'll scratch the hell out of your paint. Make sure you blow them off and get them off that way because, like I said, you don't want to cause a problem while you're doing your installation. Now, after I got the holes drilled, I went back with a special bit and enlarged the holes just a little. Gives you a little more wiggle room so that you can get everything perfect. Because if you do the 1/4 inch, well, that's the exact diameter of the bolt. So there's not going to be any wiggle room. So making them just a little larger gave me a little bit more room for error. And on the underside, there's one spot where there's not actually a hole. You have to drill through both parts of the deck. And it hits up with the weather stripping. So you have to actually enlarge that bottom hole and make it to where you can actually put the washer up inside so it's hitting the upper part of the lid, not the lower part, because you don't want that bolt rubbing against your weather stripping. Once all the holes were drilled, I went back with some primer and some touch-up paint and covered all the bare metal. I just want to stop any potential for rust, as much as I can. And then I actually went around and put a little bit of non-hardening liquid gasket around the holes to keep moisture from getting in there. And then came the hard part. This is probably the hardest part of the whole install, or at least it was until I figured out how to do it. There's these little spacers, and if you look at this one hole in the trunk here, there's 2 layers. Like I said, there was a little tab in there with a hole already in it inside of the hole on the actual trunk. So I had to get this spacer between that little tab and the outer portion of the trunk where we drilled the hole. And it says in the instructions, you'll need small hands. And that is garbage. You will actually need like little porcelain Chinese doll hands if you're going to get in there. There was just no way I was even getting close. Even my younger son, who has smaller hands than me, couldn't even begin to get in there. So eventually I had to rig something up with a coat hanger where I could slide them in there, taped to a coat hanger, then used a screwdriver to hold it in place and pulled the coat hanger loose, breaking loose from the tape. And that way I finally got the spacers in. Now, once those spacers were in there, all the holes were drilled. All we had to do now was set that assembled wing down on the car and put the bolts in. I had to get a little help with this. And of course, it went very smoothly, just like in the video from Aeroflow Dynamics. It went very easily. I didn't spend, an hour trying to get the bolts in properly and trying to get the thing spaced properly. And then after not taking an hour to finally get it in, I understand why there were lots of cuts in their video. I didn't drop some of the parts down into the actual trunk lid and have to fish them out with a coat hanger. Didn't do that at all. So it wasn't a frustrating nightmare where I almost cried several times. But once all the bolts were in and all the extra parts were fished out of the actual trunk, luckily some of them fell out after I shut the lid a couple of times, I was ready to put everything back together because the wing was installed. So I put the cover back on, and I also put some rubber grommets in those holes I drilled. I don't like leaving exposed metal even if I painted them. And it looks great. The only problem I had is now my automatic opening trunk doesn't open automatically. It's too heavy. So you got to open it and then go over and lift it up yourself, which, isn't a big thing. But, I wanted to note that just in case anybody would be bothered by that if they installed the wing. You will have to open your own trunk like a savage now. But it does make it easier to close, I'll give you that. And with that, we were done. And I think the car looks so much better. Like I said, I don't care what people think about doing this. If you like the way it looks and you think it makes the car look better, which I think it makes the car look 1,000 times better, especially from the rear, go ahead and do this. Because like I said, it wasn't the easiest thing I ever did in my life. There were some hesitant moments. There were some complications along the way. But the end result is awesome. It looks so much better. And I'm glad that I chose this wing because at highway speeds, like I said, it's a little sturdier. I haven't noticed nearly as much flexing from this as I have other wings in the past. So if someone asked me, would I recommend the Aeroflow Dynamics wing based solely on the quality of the wing, I definitely would. And does it make the car look better? It certainly does.